It's time to get the point as Rouge Radio is ready to kick off.
Ready!
The best football talk with the best in the business.
So what is the cost? You have 2 first-round picks this year because the Argos were dumb enough to trade for Drew Willie.
A few rookies.
We go directly to the on-field product. We welcome to the show the 20th overall pick in this past Sunday's CFL draft, DeAndre Wright of the Alouettes. DeAndre, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
And the occasional Hall of Famer.
Please welcome Doug Brown, who is one of the members of the current class of 2016 in the CFL Hall of Fame. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you guys for the kind words and for having me on the program.
Rouge Radio is on the air. Here's your hosts, Robert Dalton and Tony Allen.
Welcome back to what is probably the fourth time that we're doing this podcast, episode 519, powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network. My name is Robert Dalton, and joining me as always, Tony. I freaking hate Dalts, Allen. Side note, this is probably going to be the shortest podcast because we've actually recorded a full one. We've actually done like 2.5
15 minutes for a podcast.
Yeah, we did one, and it turns out there was editing issues. Prior to that, and actually prior to us coming on the air today, we talked about for 5 minutes, and I forgot to press record. Tony, I apologize.
That's
So the benefit of us, one of the key things here is on the podcast that we did, we had a little segment where we were trying to do Seen It trivia for The Simpsons, and there was like a lot of awkward dead air as we were Googling the 3 towns that was it Lyle Langley, where was that the guy's name?
Lyle Langley.
Yeah, the Phil Hartman's character in The Simpsons, the monorail, and it was just. If you're watching it, you're just looking at both of us on our phones trying to Google the 3 cities. We knew North Havenbrook, Ogdenville, and then there was the third,
Brockway.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Brockway's the one everyone always forgets.
Yeah. So we're not going to talk about the monorail, so I guess we could have just like not talked about that, but it is what it is. We've got a great show. We've obviously going to talk some CFL new commish, some CFL SMS and shenanigans, and of course, preview the Calgary Stampeders. Otherwise, you've told me how you are, how you have been.
Condensed version. Medicine Hat Tigers into the Eastern Conference Final and the WHL playoffs. Big fan since we recorded the show. They were only up 2-0. Now they've swept the Prince Albert Raiders. So probably something I will talk about as we record every week if the Tigers keep advancing from round to round, although there's only 2 rounds to go if we can do it. But fingers crossed, go Medicine Hat Tigers. Gavin McKenna is the only thing I need to say after that one. If you don't know who he is, you will in about a month, I think.
And go Jets go! Stanley Cup playoffs start tomorrow as we're recording Friday night, and I can confidently say that because I know that Tony's gone through his diatribe about his love and passion for the Leafs and Senators.
Yeah, I can't tell that story again, but
we can't tell that story again for the 4th time.
Yeah. But needless to say, I am supporting either this. I'll probably throw my fandom behind either Toronto or Ottawa in the first round. From I have histories in 2 towns, one in Southern Ontario, one in Eastern Ontario, Pembroke in the Ottawa Valley, Goderich on Lake Huron. Both were very bombarded with those 2 teams if you were from the area. So nothing personal against the Winnipeg Jets, especially as Dalts has tried to bring up in the past that your son plays for the Jets. And yes, for his 2 U9 seasons, he was a Medicine Hat Jet. So I feel like I've already done my service to the Jets, so I don't need to support Jets anymore. So nothing personal to them.
To our friendship and to your son.
Yeah, so nothing personal to the Jets, nothing personal to the Montreal Canadiens. 100% personal against the Edmonton Oilers. I can't do it. I'm not a Canada's team or support Canada when it comes to franchises because to me, it's not about that. Like, the Stanley Cup is coming back to Canada no matter who wins the Stanley Cup, because half of the teams are Canadian, and they bring it back to their little small town farm communities or cities in Canada. And the Stanley Cup is in Canada for like 60 days out of the 100 days in the off season. So I definitely don't. It's coming back to Canada no matter what, just from a different base team.
Yeah. Let's move on. The CFL has a new commissioner, the 15th commissioner of the CFL, Stuart Johnson from TSN. He has a wide array of experience in obviously within the media. So, is this in your opinion, of what you know of Mr. Johnson, is this a good hire? Or is this kind of like a token hire? Because I remember we were talking about Randy Ambrosie when he was first hired, which was like 8 years ago. And telltale about him is that he was the worst commissioner ever. And I'm like, how can you like judge that? Like, the commissioner in the CFL is essentially a puppet of the board of governors, the owners and whatnot in any league, but more specifically for the CFL. Really doesn't have an effect per se. His roles are somewhat limited almost as opposed to any other commissioner. And I go back to Randy Ambrosie. I mean, everybody's going to call him the worst commissioner in CFL history, but the first year after he leaves, cap goes up by close to $1 million. So I mean, can't. He's got this new partnership with CTV, obviously part of the Bell Media and whatnot. It can't be all bad. I know that there's a few hiccups here with global CFL, the global draft. I believe it was probably one of those things where it didn't work out the way that he imagined it would be. And I don't think that is something that he should be that shouldn't be his legacy as far as being a coordinator. But enough about Ambrosie. Obviously, I talked about Stuart Johnson. Your thoughts on Mr. Johnson being the 15th CFL commissioner?
Yeah, I had to do some research on him because I don't know much about him, and my spare time I don't spend researching CEOs and what have you of television broadcast networks. But I mean, I feel like it can't hurt to have a connection between the commissioner and TSN. I'm sure there'll be all kinds of conspiracies, there'll be theories, there'll be people vehemently explaining why it is a massive conflict of interest or something, because nothing can happen in the CFL that's not dragged through the mud. Nothing has ever looked through positive views when it comes to the Canadian Football League. So I'm sure there's 100 reasons people are more than excited in the media to tell you about why this guy is no good, but he's a businessman. I mean, TSN isn't a failure. It's been around for a while. And I say that obviously knowing what I just said, like, TSN is not a struggling corporation. They're good. The man's a businessman. He's a salesman. I mean, if maybe he can guide these owners down the right road, because again, these owners are meant to become rich by being smart businessmen, and another smart businessman in someone like Johnston maybe helps grow the game, look in other areas. You mentioned the Global 2.0. You know what? You got optimistic, and if it didn't work, I'm not going to be upset when something fails. It's the worst thing you can do is try something new, have it fail, and then say, nope, that's it. We're just going back to what we always do, because that's what they say is the most dangerous line in business, right? We've always just done that way. We haven't always just done Global 2.0. And if it didn't work, at least we took a shot at it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Obviously, we'll need time to see what this guy is like, but so I really have no comment. Like, I hope he comes in. I'm rooting for him, because a lot in the Canadian sports media won't root for him. They will be circling like vultures, waiting for the first mistake. 3 things successful will happen. and you won't hear about it, but it'll be the first thing he stumbles on that will be brought up and questioned, and the league be drugged down for.
My biggest fear for this is that the expectations will be through the roof.
Yeah.
Because as I was talking about Randy Ambrosie, the foregone thought process, the narrative was that he was one of the worst commissioners in CFL history.
Mm-hmm.
So if Stuart Johnson doesn't come out of the gate and just take everything by the by the bull or by the horns,
Yeah,
that you're expecting everything to be better than Randy Ambrosie at this point.
yeah.
And if he doesn't come out of the gate with a huge good impression, well, then there's going to be that narrative that, it's just Randy Ambrosie 2.0, without actually realizing the fact that this is just the commissionership. It is what it is. It's just a name, and I think a lot of people are going to be very, very, very disappointed when they figure out that you have no power either. Okay, well, great.
3 or 4 weeks in, people are going to start questioning why attendance is still down in Toronto and why Johnston hasn't solved that problem. Like that's what he's facing right away. It's like week 4, attendance in Toronto doesn't go up or BC, and then suddenly, well, this guy was a complete waste of everybody's time. Why is it? Like he'll be, like you said, he won't even have a short leash. He will just be like literally tied to the stump immediately and not given any leadway.
My also issue or big fear is that because he comes from TSN, just watch one big gaffe on the TSN broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Barker says something insensitive or something, or the audio issues. Obviously that happens, on a rare occasion, but you're going to get some social media moron that's going to come on and go, well, I thought Stuart Johnson at the helm that this TSN partnership would improve the on-air product, right? I mean, you're going to get some kind of rhetoric for that,
like interviews during the play or whatever. That is everybody's beef right now, like for the last couple of years, and seriously, if you don't like it, I don't care. The entire football community is not sick of these in-game interviews while the play is going on. Nobody cares. You probably don't like it. It might be annoying for you, but shut up about it. Nobody cares that they're doing interviews. Turn the sound off. You don't need sound to watch a football game then. Like, just turn it off when the interview starts and then pop mute back on. Because, like, this is become the single dumbest, fruitless, pointless, void of any substance and credibility, these in-game interviews that are supposedly destroying everybody's lives. And they're going to go, again, if you work for TSN, get rid of these. We hate them. Nobody cares that you hate it that much. They are irrelevant. Turn the volume off for 5 minutes, turn mute back off, and it's over. That's a soapbox I've been meaning to get on for a couple years, and I'll probably do it again. But the in-game, shut up. Football community does not hate it that much that you need to bring it up every time they do it.
I am one of those that I've voiced my opinions on that. I'm not a huge fan of in-game interviews, but I'm also not a fan of in-game interviews for the sake of having an in-game interview. The Hall of Fame game, where they've obviously they have the CFL Hall of Famers come into the studio to talk and get questions or interviewed. That I'm fine with, right? It's a special occasion. You're probably not going to have a better time to interview the 4 or 5 players or owners that have been inducted to the Hall of Fame. Do I really need to have an interview with the athletic trainer for the Hamilton Tiger Cats in week 3 of the young season on a Friday night? No, I don't.
And again, they're not stopping the play to have these interviews. Yeah. Hit mute and just keep watching the game. Like,
and here's why. Okay, I get it. You're right. The problem that I have is sometimes they do go on for a long period of time, and to me, I don't know. When I see a play happening, to me, I need to have that play-by-play, especially for a touchdown. All right, so if you start the interview and a team is at the 20, you can say, okay, we're going to have a 60-second interview with this person and whatnot. Probably not going to be, we're not going to miss anything huge. But then you have like a 50-yard long bomb, but we don't get the aspect of the ambiance of the crowd noise and the reaction of the in studio, because we got to ask Dave Dickinson about his meal prep time on Sundays before game time. That is my only the issue that I have, but that comes from a personal aspect. Otherwise, I don't think that you are wrong on your opinion of that. But
and the only other advice I would have for Commissioner Johnston: don't announce the Grey Cup halftime show too early, because people need time to complain about it. And don't do it too late, or people will shred you for having the announcement too late. So you've got to find that nice sweet spot in the middle, because again, people, they're not prepared to crap on the halftime show yet. So last year when the CFL did it like right away, like people were deflated. They deflated. Like they were scrambling to Google Jonas Brothers and then try to complain about it. So don't be too early, because people need to complain about it. And if you go too early, they can't complain how late you were. But don't go too late, because then you're Bush League, because now it's week 17 and we don't know who the halftime show is. So good luck, Commissioner Johnston, finding that sweet spot to announce the halftime show. But don't make it Canadian, because we're sick of this stereotype that the halftime always needs to be American or Canadian, but don't make it American because we're Canadian and the halftime show should always be a Canadian. So you got your work cut out there for you there, because the halftime show can't be Canadian because that's just too cliche, and it can't be American because we're Canadian and it has to be a Canadian halftime show. And don't do it too early or too soon.
And if you're going to announce it, at least make sure that you actually, a group as opposed to a single artist. Make sure you get 100% of the group. We don't need 2/3 of Florida Georgia Line.
Yeah, exactly.
That still tickles my my humorous button there. Let's get to the some salary shenanigans. The BC Lions. They were announced. 4 teams were over the cap. BC Lions, Saskatchewan Roughriders, Ottawa Redblacks, and the Toronto Argonauts. Not so much for 3 of the 4. The 4th team, the BC Lions, were hit hard with a fine. They went so far over the cap that not only do they have 1 draft pick that they have to forfeit, they have to forfeit 2 of their first 2 rounds, both going to the Calgary Stampeders. I don't know how that works. I mean, I know how it works. I just don't get why it works that way. Because the fines are distributed evenly to the other teams that haven't gone over the cap. So 5 of the 9 teams actually benefit from BC going heavily over the cap. But I mean, does this say a lot about the BC Lions as an organization, or is this kind of like one of? Because I posted a video on TikTok that, because there's other things that happened within that organization, and to me, I think BC is kind of like walking that line about being a disorganized franchise.
Well, I don't think it doesn't view, to me, it doesn't view poorly on BC in any aspect other than it didn't work. Like you try to go all out and all in, but it didn't work. Like Like, I'm sorry, like, you did all of that and there was no payoff. But when you look at everything BC Lions did to bring fans back to the game, to make it more of an experience, when you look at the BC Lions as a whole, I can't bring myself to say, well, I'm questioning how this organization is run, because they've done a fantastic job to try and make the BC Lions part of that Vancouver and the province of Alberta's identity again. And you went all in. And if I'm a fan, why am I getting mad? If I'm a fan of the BC Lions, why am I going to yell at the owner and management and say, you stupid bastards, you spent way too much money to try and win? Oh, I mean, be mad it didn't work, but it's like, oh, I hate our owners. They did absolutely everything to the extreme to try and bring a championship here. You sons of bitches, why would you do that? Like, but you have the views, like, why would you do that and not win? But I don't think there's any negative about the BC Lions doing it, because the last time we talked about it, it's like they didn't do anything illegal. They knew they were going to get punished. There's no reason to think BC did anything dysfunctional, inappropriate, unprofessional, because they knew the consequences. It's not one of those things, let's do it and then sit back and see what happens. You know you're going to get punished for it. And again, it's the Vegas Golden Knights problem. It's great that you have this self-righteousness, this superiority. It's like, oh, my team would never take advantage of rules like that. Well, then your team are idiots, because it's there, it's legal, and you can do it. So the Golden Knights have never been the villains, other than the self-righteous fans. Oh, I would be appalled if my team ever did that. Would you, though? Would you really be appalled? Like, yeah, I don't think you would. I think if Edmonton got close to the playoffs and suddenly Draisaitl and McDavid have these mystery ailments that have them out for 4 months, and now you were able to use $20 million in salary cap to bring in Mikko Rantanen and all the Jake Ottinger. Oh, yeah, where's your moral compass then? Of course, you would have no problem with abusing long-term injury reserve. And BC did nothing wrong except not spend their money apparently on the right players. You had the right intentions. You were doing what you thought was going to get you that Grey Cup. Your money just didn't buy the right pieces, because other teams did it. And then you've got the Toronto Argonauts, who did spend their money in the right places, apparently, because nobody saw Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts in the future. We were already having a Winnipeg Montreal Grey Cup or BC Grey Cup. No one had a Toronto Argonauts Grey Cup, but they did what they did, and it got them a Grey Cup. And if I'm an Argonauts fan, I don't care. And if the Stampeders do it, I don't care. I'm going to sleep like a baby at night if my team has to piss away some draft picks to bring a Grey Cup back to here for the first time since 2018.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very unlikely that Dave Dickinson's going to spend money.
No, yeah, he's...
No, I am not lamenting on the fact that they went over the cap, right? I mean, exactly. It's the rule is, if you want to spend over the cap, here's the penalty to do so. No, and if you know that this is what's going to happen, then, and you're okay with it, then do it. It looks bad because of what happened, right? If they had a proper team, and then they said, you know what, let's add Nathan Rourke, let's add Matthew Betts, and it didn't work out, okay, then we're looking at, oh, frick, it didn't work out. That situation, though, was we have a not so good team. We have a MVP type quarterback who's playing hurt, a crappy offensive line, a defense that can't get to the quarterback, secondary that's iffy, and that's it. okay, well, let's bring in Nathan Rourke, who hasn't played in the CFL in 2 years. And let's bring back Matthew Betts, who, albeit is a very good pass rusher, not the make or break it on the defense that a lot of people are making him out to be. And proof is in the pudding. One and done. They get their asses kicked by Saskatchewan in the West Semi, and it did not look good at all. And what actually made it look worse is the fact that we saw that coming. Right. Well, I know we all love Nathan Rourke, right? We have Nathan Rourke jerseys. You had your modified.
Oh
Nathan
yeah,
Rourke
that's right.
jersey.
Yeah.
And it's. I think the expectation was, hey, Nathan Rourke's Canadian. Nathan Rourke is a great quarterback. He's going to automatically fix what ails us. And there was just so many holes on that team that Nathan Rourke was not going to overcome it himself.
Yeah.
So,
and I think, and again, not to sound like, I mean, maybe if there was a year to do it, though, for BC to say we might not have the perfect team, but let's take a shot, it was last season, because you had a garbage Calgary team, Edmonton still trying to come back, Saskatchewan that was even below the mushy middle. They weren't even middle of the pack. They were mushy middle. They were like, okay, we can be good this week, but I'm not betting money on Saskatchewan next week, regardless of what they did. And Winnipeg, who started the year with seriously underwhelming football, but were able to turn it back on in the second half of the season. So if you're the BC Lions, if there was a year to say, okay, we may not be loaded to the gills, the West is so bad that it might be enough. And I know I'm giving BC an excuse because, again, they didn't look better than everybody else, and they've really had a rough time. But the West as a whole, until Winnipeg kicked it in to high gear again in the second half of the season, there would, if there was a season where you're going to roll the dice with what you have and see where it lands. And again, the Grey Cup champion was proof of that. They sent Nick Arbuckle into the big game, and he won it. So if there was a year to say, okay, we might be the lucky team this year that fumbles in, last year would have been the year to do it, because I don't think there was a clear-cut Grey Cup favor all season outside of the Montreal Alouettes. And that was not someone BC would have had to worry about until the big game.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our Calgary Stampeder preview. A lot of moves, but very underwhelming outside of under center. Obviously, the big name was via trade, acquiring Vernon Adams Jr. for multiple draft picks, one of which I believe they got back because BC went over the cap. Yeah, so that's the big name. Guys like Damon Webb coming in, Cameron Judge going out, Tavon Smith comes in, Peyton Logan goes out. I think that's the player that I think they're going to really miss the most.
That's the biggest one, yeah. I would say so too.
And not only because it's out of your own organization, it's to a divisional rival in Winnipeg at a position that they sorely lacked last year. But enough about the Bombers. Let's talk about the Calgary Stampeders. And I think one of the biggest moves was at the coaching ranks. Craig Dickinson becomes special team coordinator, I believe. Could be wrong on that one, actually. But Mark Killam leaving to become head coach in Edmonton. You are the huge Calgary Stampeders fan, not so much on the Dave Dickinson side, but a huge Calgary Stampeder fan nonetheless. Your thoughts on what you've seen so far in Calgary?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's a coach in the CFL that should be more on the hot seat than Dave Dickinson, but isn't somehow on the hot seat. I don't understand what's going on with the Calgary Stampeders organization, because no one should fear for their life more than Dave Dickinson, and the one head coach in the league that talks fearlessly about their view is Dave Dickinson. I don't understand how this guy is so untouchable. And in a season where Dave should have had one of his two titles taken from him, And I doubt you'll find many people who would say Dave Dickinson should be holding both titles these days, especially in this sports landscape. A general manager, head coach should be completely unnecessary and irrelevant in these days. That should not be a dual role anymore. Not because people can't do it, you just don't need it. You absolutely don't need it. And sure, coaching salary cap rules, but I don't think that applies if he's a general manager as well. Like, there's just, in a year where he should be on his way out, and a young up and coming coach like Mark Killam, who has rejected, I can't even imagine how many offers he's rejected to stay with the Calgary Stampeders organization. And after a year where change is something the Stampeders need the most of, they go the opposite route, continue to go with incredibly unsuccessful at everything Dickinson, I can't remember Dave's brother, Craig Dickinson, and then Dave Dickinson, who hasn't done anything with this organization since John Hufnagel stepped away. But to let Mark Killam leave this organization, that is, to me, that's more embarrassing than anything those 4 teams that went over this luxury cap did this year. I mean, Edmonton must have been just laughing all the way to the bank on that one. Yeah. I think they are going to reap massive rewards from what Mark Killam brings. And I think the Elks are going to reap the rewards of players wanting to go to Edmonton to play for a guy like Mark Killam, opposed to the mass exodus out of Calgary we have seen under Dave Dickinson. So I can't even properly orate how disappointed I am from that situation. Now, Dave Dickinson, he did bring in Vernon Adams Jr. What that's going to result in, I don't know. But because he had to know his ass was on the fryer a little bit, had to make this trade. He could not let Vernon Adams Jr. go anywhere. He had to go to Calgary. So at least he did the one thing he needed to do. Because now if it doesn't work, you can't blame Dave, because that's probably the consensus pick. If you asked Stampeders fans, what's your priority this summer, was probably getting, well, obviously Trey Ford in Edmonton if you could, but it didn't really seem like an option. But it was basically Vernon Adams. Get him into Calgary. And now if Vernon Adams fails, Dave could be like, nope, that's the guy you told me to go get. So,
yeah, I mean, but at that point, you'd be like, okay, if it fails, then maybe it's my game planning. Maybe it's my playbook that needs to be adjusted, right? I mean, no, you're right. Dave Dickinson has been within that organization since what, 20? Oh man, I can't remember. It's been a while as the offensive coordinator. Then he took over in 2016 when Hufnagel went to upstairs management role. But very rarely do the duo title of GM and head coach work in the CFL unless your name is Wally Buono.
Sir, are no Wally Buono.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's mistaking Dave Dickinson with Wally Buono, definitely by looks and coaching style. I don't recall Wally Buono having a bad challenge. I mean, he might have, but that the Dave Dickinson challenge special is something to uphold there. Record prediction for the Stampeders.
I would have an improved Calgary Stampeders team, but nothing ridiculous. I would like to see them improve to a 7-11 record, which I think might be possible. Dave has brought in a lot of defensive players. The offensive line's got to be able to protect Vernon Adams Jr., or that's going to be, I don't care how good your quarterback is, he needs an offensive line, period. But when I kind of go through all the signings, I follow those. lot of defensive players. So if the Stamps do have to, if they give over the ball, if the offense can't get it going, I mean, it looks like he's going to make an attempt to at least put together one of the dominant defenses that we've had in the past. I can't imagine we could ever get back to an Alex Singleton type defensive era in Calgary, but I mean, built from the defense, we'll see what happens. Again, 7-11 is where I could picture the Calgary Stampeders improving to, because if they're going to go up, I do see teams coming down, and we'll cover those guys when we get to them in the 19 weeks. And I do have 2 specific teams falling in the standings this year, and we'll learn about those later on.
Yeah, I do have them improving, but not by much. I feel that the moves, like we talked about this before, that they had to make moves, right? They couldn't sit idly by and waiting for the team, and wait, and waiting for other players being snatched up by other teams. But I feel that the moves that they made, albeit that they had to make them, was very severely underwhelming, to be honest with you. And not that they're crappy football players, they're just not the type of players that are automatically going to improve your football team. I don't see an improvement on the coaching side. Grant, that's why they play the games as opposed to us talking about it and deciding who wins and loses. But I don't see an improvement where it needs to be. Outside of, I mean, they did improve at quarterback, because how could you not with Jake Mayer and Tommy Stevens? But I also feel that they'll probably miss Tommy Stevens more than anything, unless you want to have Vernon Adams Jr. Taking third down sneaks and taking additional hits to the head where it's unneeded. So I think Calgary's going to be in trouble, but there is going to be some hope for the future. But that hope is probably going to be for maybe being competitive, but I don't see this team being more than 6-12. That is my final prediction.
Okay.
As we wrap it up, any final thoughts?
No. A fun attempt to get back into podcasting after a winter off, and we knocked the rust off. Now, there was a lot of rust on there, but we knocked it off, and we're ready to get back into this thing now.
Well, it shouldn't be too much rust. I mean, we actually recorded the show, and then we did about 10 minutes worth of let's grab the booth announcer in here, because we have
some sponsors. The Rouge Radio podcast is sponsored by the good people at Manscaped.com. Go to Manscaped.com, enter the promo code Rouge, and your order is discounted up to 20% and free worldwide shipping. We're also sponsored or partnered with the good people at Sports Interaction. Yeah, the CFL doesn't start for another couple of months, but of course, we're in Canada. We got some Stanley Cup playoffs. Go to SI8.com/Rouge. Your first deposit, if you haven't created an account already, is matched up to 100%. Go, Jets, go! Despite what Tony wants to tell you.
For Tony, I'm Dalts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.